Dear students, let us continue with our module 3. This is my agenda for today. First, coming to the properties of light. So what is light? Light is radiant energy. This energy can be expressed in the form of frequency, wavelength, or in terms of electron volts. The energy is distributed across different type of rays. So we are having one portion of this ray which is called as the visible light. That means this particular range the human beings are sensitive to. They can see what type of colors are there. So in the visible range we have different colors. We can see at the lowest frequency in the visible light, that is at 3.8 into 10 to the power of 14 Hertz, we can find the red colors. And when we move to the highest frequency at 7.9 into 10 to the power of 14 Hertz, we can find the violet colors. The human eye is also sensitive to some frequency on the ultraviolet as well as on the infrared waves. The wave model of electromagnetic radiation tells that the light can be described as a transverse electric and magnetic field which is propagating through space. Coming to some more psychological properties of the light. So the first one is the brightness. Brightness corresponds to the total light energy, and it can also be told as the luminance of the light. The second one is the saturation. The saturation or the purity, it is going to describe how close a light appears to be in a pure spectrum. That means pale colors have low purity and dark colors have high purity. Then the chromaticity, it is used to refer to the combination of two colors, two properties, that is purity and hue. So hue is nothing but it is defining a pure color in terms of the basic colors, bold colors. It is going to define mixing up of two colors, and then it is going to tell for a certain color we will always have a hue. That means we are going to talk about in terms of different type of colors, and that property is called as a hue. In the color models, the basic hues, the basic shades what we are going to select for the sources, they are called as the primary colors. The color gamut, it is a set of all the colors what we can produce by making use of these primary colors. And then the complementary colors are, when we combine these two colors, we are going to get a white light. That means red is complementary to cyan. If I add red and cyan, I am going to get a white color. Similarly, for the green and magenta and blue and yellow. Then we also will know what about this intuitive color concept. So in this intuitive color concept, when we talk about the shades are nothing but where we are going to add some black pigment to our color, and that is going to produce the shades. And when I am going to add some white pigment to my color, it is going to give rise to tints. Tones are nothing but it is a combination of the color with white as well as the black pigments. Coming to the industry, when we have the digital, when we have the software and all these things, there we usually choose the RGB. Whereas when you go for the printers and all, there the CMY color model is usually chosen. Our eyes perceive color through the stimulation of the three basic colors in the cones of our retina in the eye. So one of the pigment is the red one, another is the green, and the last one is the blue. So by comparing the intensities in a light source, we can perceive which color it is. So this theory, it is again going for the displaying the color output on the video monitor by making use of the three primary colors, that is red, green and blue. And that is why this model is called as the red, green and blue color model. We can represent this model by making use of a unit cube which is defined on the RGB axis. So as we can see in this figure, the origin, it is going to represent the black, and the diagonally opposite vertex which is having the coordinate value as 1, 1, 1, it is the white color. The vertices of the cube on the axis, they are going to represent the primary colors, and all the remaining vertices, they are the complementary color points for each of the primary colors. So the RGB color scheme, it is an additive model. That means we are going to add and we are going to get different colors. So each color point within this cube, it can be represented as a combination of some amount of red, some amount of green and some amount of blue. So these parameters, they will be having some values. That means the red, green and blue, they will have the values in the range minimum 0 to maximum 1.0. So you can see that the magenta is obtained by adding maximum red and blue colors, so that it is going to produce a triplet 1 0 1. Whereas the white is equal to 1 1 1, which is the sum of the maximum values of the red, green and blue. So the shades of the grey color, they are represented along the line from the black to the white. Points along this diagonal, they are going to have equal distributions for each primary color. And a grey shade halfway, it is going to be represented as 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. When we plot the normalized amounts for the x and y for all the colors in the visible spectrum, we are going to obtain one tongue-shaped curve which is shown here. This curve is called as the CIE chromaticity diagram. CIE is the International Commission on Illumination. So this one, it is giving all possible points, the interior points what we can see here. You can see that it is giving all possible visible color combination. And among that you can see there is a white light at the center. So the three black dots what are there, they are the range of the red, green and blue. On the rightmost we have the reds, and then on the left we have the blues, and then on the top we have the green. So this point what is there, this is called as the illuminant. We call that as the capital C. The capital C is the white color. The chromaticity diagram, it is useful for comparing color gamuts for different set of primary colors. It can also identify the complementary colors. And in the color chromaticity diagram, we can also determine the pure and the dominant wavelength for a given color. Here we are having for the RGB, the R value is given by 0.735, 0.265. At that value we are having the maximum red color. Around it will be having shades of red color. For the green, the value is 0.274 X value, Y value is 0.717. So here we have the green colors concentration. Then we have the blue at 0.167 and 0.009. So the RGB color scheme, it is an additive model. So the chromaticity what is there? It is also for the National Television System Committee. That means on the screen we will have the phosphors. So for that phosphors, what is the values? That value is given in this chromaticity diagram. So this picture is showing the approximate color gamut for the National Television System Committee standard RGB primaries. By taking the RGB as the primary colors, what are the possible color combinations, and which has been defined by the CIE as well as the National Television System Committee. So a body has been given what is the set of colors we should have. So this is how the colors will be represented, and the phosphors will be given the approximate colors, because of which you will be able to see the colorful pictures on the screen. So this color gamut is nothing but it's a combination of all the colors what we can create by making use of the primary colors red, green and blue. A subtractive color model which is formed from the three basic colors cyan, magenta and yellow, it is called as the CMY model. The cyan is a greenish blue color. When white light is reflected from the cyan colored ink, the reflected light will be containing the green and the blue components. A unit cube which is representing the CMY model, it is illustrated here. In the CMY model, the spatial position, that is 1, 1, 1, it is going to represent the black color because all the components of the incident light are subtracted. The origin is going to represent the white light. Equal amount of the primary colors, it is going to produce several shades of gray color when we are going to connect a line from the black to the white. The CMY printing process, it is going to make use of 4 ink dots. Along with the CMY, the 4th dot is the black color. So the CMY model is also referred to as the CMYK model, where K is the black color parameter. So some plotters, they are going to produce different color combinations by spraying the ink for the 3 different primary colors over each other, and then they are going to mix them and then they will be left to dry. For the black and white or the grayscale printing, only the black ink can be used. The conversion from the RGB to CMY and CMY to RGB, it is represented in the form of a matrix transformation. So first one, the CMY can be got by subtracting the red, green and blue from the white. So this is the one what we have here, RGB to CMY, that is the white color. Whereas when we go for the RGB, we can get the RGB colors from the CMY after subtracting from the black. So the one in CMY to RGB is the black color. So for the conversion, we can make use of this transition diagrams and then we can go for converting. So wherever we have to go for the printing or for displaying, we can go for modifying and we can improve the colors of the system. After colors, let us discuss about the light. What the light source, it is an object which is emitting a radiant energy. So the light source will be having a variety of shapes and characteristics. So it can be serving as a source of illumination for a scene. That means it's going to provide some light for the scene. So if you want to create an object which is having, it can be both light source and it can be a light reflector. And a light source can be defined with a number of properties like its position, where it is placed, the color of the emitted light, and which direction that light is emitted, and what is the shape of the color. And if the light is a reflecting surface, then we have to also give its reflectivity properties. Addition to this, we should also set up the light source that is going to emit different colors in different direction. We can have a light which can be emitting one color on one side, another color on the other side. So in most of the applications, a simple light source model is used until unless specified. So this light will be consisting of a single value, but this value will be consisting of RGB color components. That means it will be having the intensity in terms of RGB. All the 3 colors will be together. The simplest light source is the point light source. In the point light source, we will be having a single color, and this single color will be given by its position and the color of the emitted light. The light rays are generated along radially diverging paths from the single color source position. So we have a, you can look at the picture here, we have a light rays coming out of a single source. So this light source model, it is a approximation for the sources whose dimensions are small and it is as compared to the size of the object. That means the objects will be bigger and the light source is small. That type of light is called as a point light source. We can use the position of the point source in an illumination model to determine which objects in the scene are illuminated. That means which objects are highlighted, on which the light is falling, which is glowing. So by this point source, and we can calculate the light direction to the selected object surface position. Infinitely distant light source, for example we have the sun, which is very far from the scene, and this one, it will be having its directional property. That means it is going to be producing the light only in one direction. The light path from the distant light in the scene, it will be constant. That means from the sun, when we have the light on some object over here, we cannot tell on which part it is more or less. It is equal. The distribution will be equal because the source is very far. So we can simulate the infinitely distant light source by assigning a color value and a fixed direction. So we'll have one fixed direction for the light rays. So if the sun is on one particular direction, the light will be emitted from that particular direction. So it is not like a point. It is not going in all direction. It is coming only in one particular direction. So you have to consider only those part of the rays which are coming to the object from the source in one particular direction. So the vector for the emission direction and the light source, they are needed here, but the position is not required because the position is immaterial, because our source is very far from the object. The light source is very far from the object. As the radiant energy from a light source travels towards the space, its amplitude at some distance dl from the source, it will be attenuated. That means it will become smaller by a factor of 1 by dl square. This means that the surface close to the light source, it is going to receive a higher incident light, whereas whether it is a farer, you are going to get a lesser light. Therefore, to produce a realistic effect, so what we are going to do, we are going to take this intensity attenuation into account. To generate a more realistic display by making use of the point source, we can attenuate the light intensities with the inverse quadratic function of dl, that is going to include a linear term. This f, radial attenuation of the distance dl, it is given by 1 by a0 plus a1 dl plus a2 dl square. Here the values a0, a1 and a2, they can be adjusted. The coefficients can be adjusted to produce some optimal attenuation effects. Also, all the points in the scene, they are at nearly equal distance from a far off source. So we have to accommodate both this remote as well as the local light source. We can do that by making use of this formula, which is called as the frequency of the light in terms of the radial attenuation. It will be equal to 1 when the source is at infinite distance, or else like in the previous case we will be having, it will be equal to 1 by a0 plus a1 dl plus a2 dl square. This is when the source is nearby. If the source is far, we will take this value to be as 1, else it will be equal to this linear equation what was given in the first one. So this is called as the radial intensity attenuation, the frequency of the radial attenuation. When we want to include a large light source at a position which is close to the object, like how it is shown in the scene over here, like a long neon lamp is there. So we want to approximate this as a light emitting surface. So this light emitting surface, whatever is behind that light, that should not be illuminated. Only the light has to be illuminated. So if we make use of the point emitters over here, the point sources what are here, they have to be illuminated and the light won't be illuminated. So we can extend the light source. We can model this light source as a grid of directional point emitters. When we have some photo shoot or some drama or some theatre act going on, we need some special effects. So we have a one model which is going to provide a method for producing studio lighting effect. This studio lighting effect can be got by the set of point emitters what we just discussed. These point emitters, they are going to simulate the barn door, the flaps and the spotlight controls. What is this barn door, flaps and spotlight means? We can have a metallic covering for a light, and this metallic covering will ensure that the light will be coming only in the required direction. Flaps means it will be a loosely held light where we will be having the openings and the closings. So it will give a special effect. If we have some drama or if we have some photo shoot going on, it will give some special effect to the photographers. So the one model is one model it is just significant in this place because it is going to provide us a facility where we are going to make use of the point emitters, and we can go for producing this special effect. The spotlights are nothing but we'll be having a light, a large light which will be following an object or something. So this can be made use of for the directional control. So we can make use of the flaps and everything in the XYZ direction, and we can limit the path of the emitted light rays. So this light source simulation, it is implemented in many of the graphical packages to give the special effects to the scenario. The illumination models, they are going to make our simplification of the surface illumination calculation, so that we can make use of them at the approximate representation to represent a physical process and how the light is produced and how the effect is happening. So here we are going to see some models which are going to describe its implementation in a graphical system. If we want to incorporate a background lighting by setting a general brightness level for a scene, that means ambient is uniform lighting. If I want to arrange a uniform lighting, then I can go for an ambient light. It is going to produce a uniform lighting which is same for all the objects, and it is approximating the global diffuse reflection from the various illuminated surfaces. I am going to designate this ambient light by making use of an intensity parameter IA. So the reflections produced by this ambient light, it is a form of a diffuse reflection, and they are independent of the viewing direction and the specular orientation. The incident ambient light that is reflected, it will depend on the surface optical properties. How much of the incident light is reflected and how much is absorbed, that is very significant over here. When we have a scattering of the light, then that light is called as a diffuse reflection. This diffuse reflection, it can be quantized by making use of the Lambert's law. The Lambert's cosine law, it gives the intensity depending upon the area what it is covering. So it depends upon the surface area and also in the direction of the QN. We can make out what will be its average intensity. By the Lambert's cosine law, the intensity for the diffuse reflection, it is given by the radiant energy per unit time by the projected area. This will turn out to be a constant which depends upon the cos phi n. That is, what is the direction n, which is related to the surface normal, that is given by the cos phi n, and also the area what it is covering, the surface area dA, which will turn out to be a constant. For a Lambertian reflection, the intensity of the light is same all over the viewing directions. For a Lambertian reflection, the intensity of the light is same over all the viewing directions. So because we are taking an ideal diffuse reflector surface, we are going to take one parameter called as KD, which is called as the diffuse reflection coefficient or the diffuse reflectivity. It is the fraction of the incident light that is to be scattered as diffuse reflections. The ambient contribution to the diffuse reflection at any point on a surface, it can be given by intensity of the ambient diffuse, it is equal to KD into IA, where KD is called as the diffuse reflectivity and IA is the ambient intensity. If I am using only the ambient light, it is going to produce a flat shade. That is why at least one light source will be included in the scene, which is acting as a point source at the viewing position. So if you are going to denote the angle of incidence between the incoming light direction and the surface normal by an angle called as theta, then the projected area of the surface element which is perpendicular to the light direction, it is proportional to cos theta. Therefore, we can model the amount of the incident light by making use of the formula IL incident, which is equal to IL cos theta. In this picture, we have the surface and we have the capital N. This capital N is the unit normal vector. Unit normal vector means we are having a set of values which is going to represent the normal values for the surface. A set of values is put in a vector which is called as a capital N, which is the unit normal vector. And then I am having one more vector which is called as the L. This is the light source direction vector. That means the source is at which direction. To represent that, we are going to give a set of values, and those values are put in a vector which is called as the L. Say suppose the angle made between these two vectors, it is equal to theta. By taking this theta, then I can go for simplifying the diffuse reflection. We can express the diffuse in terms of the incident light. So from the previous formula, now we are going to get the equation 9, where the incoming light from the source is perpendicular to the surface at a particular point, theta is equal to 90 degree. When theta is equal to 90 degree, this turns out to be KD and IL. As the angle of incidence increases, the illumination from the point light also, it is going to decrease. At any surface position, we can denote one normal vector which is called as the N, and another vector for the light source direction. So then we can say that cos theta is equal to N into L, and the diffuse reflection equation for a single point source illumination, we can combine now to get it in the form of a equation 10, where we will be having the normal vectors and the light source vector. When we multiply this, if it is greater than 0, then we have one set of equation, else the normal and the light vector, if it is less than 0, then we are having the diffuse value as equal to 0. Finally, we can combine the ambient and the point source intensity to obtain an expression for the total diffuse reflection at a surface position. Additional to the previous constants what we had, now we had one more value which is called as the Ka, which is called as the ambient reflection coefficient. This will be assigned to each surface to modify the ambient light intensity Ia. So when we simplify this, we are going to get the additional parameter which is adjusting the light effect in the empirical model. So by using the parameter Ka and the Kd and the Ia and the IL, we can write the total diffuse reflection equation for a single point source in a diffuse reflection as given in the equation 12, where we are having the Ka and the Kd. They depend upon the surface material properties, which will be lying between the range 0 to 1. That is for the monochromatic light. The next concept is the specular reflection and the Phong model. This is a very important topic in computer graphics, and it is also important for the examination. So whenever we have some specular surfaces, that means when we have the bright spot on one surface, and that is called as a specular reflection. That means one bright spot will be there, shiny spots will be there, no? So when we have to calculate what actually is happening in that particular place and how to represent that in my API. So the theory what all we are studying here, everything is applied to the APIs which are coming up next. Only when they are applied to the API only, then only you are going to see the effect. So the specular reflection is when we are having a shiny object and we are having at one particular spot, it will be having a bright surface will be there. So to calculate that, we are going to make use of the 4 vectors. So this is a surface here. On the surface we are having some vectors. That means the values what are there, the light what is there, the normal what is there, the average what is there, the reflection what is happening, everything, all these values we are going to accommodate in 4 vectors. That means in 4 arrays. So the first one is the L. L is the unit vector which is directed towards the point light source. That means towards the point light source, the values what are there, that will be put in your L. Then I am having the N. The unit normal surface vector, that is called as the N. That means the average, the normalized value of the surface, that is given in a vector which is called as a N. So the R is representing the unit vector in the direction of the ideal specular reflection. That means at that spot you have a reflection. At that spot you are having a round spot which is reflecting. So a small area is there. So that values, it is being put in a vector which is called as R. And V is the unit vector pointing to the viewer from the selected surface position. From the selected surface position, we are having the values, and that values is put in the V here. The angle phi is the viewing angle which is relative to the specular reflection direction R. So the angle made between the R and the V, that is called as the phi here. And then we have the other angle which is equal to the theta. The theta is the angle which is made between N and R. The same angle is also common between L and N. So by making use of these parameters, by making use of these vectors and the angle, Pong has come up with a specular reflection model, and that model is called as the Pong model. So the specular reflection angle, it is the incident light in the concentrated region. So like in the previous picture what we saw, so the specular reflection direction for a position, it is being shown over there, and we are going to make use of the normal vectors, and we are going to make use of the reflected as well as the light as well as the normal vectors to compute the specular reflection by using the Pong model. For an ideal reflector, that means if it is a perfect mirror, then the incident light is completely reflected only in the specular reflection direction. So what happens? The V becomes R and the angle phi becomes equal to 0. So the objects other than the ideal reflectors, they are going to exhibit specular reflections over a finite range of viewing positions around the vector R. The shiny surfaces, they will be having a narrow specular range, and dull surfaces will be having a wider reflection range. A model which is used for specifying the specular reflection range was given by Pong, and this model is called as the Pong model. In this Pong model, we are going to set the intensity of a specular reflection which is proportional to the cos ns phi, where angle phi can be assigned values in the range from 0 to 90 degree, so that it can be varying from 0 to 1. The ns, it is called as a specular reflection exponent. It can be determined by the type of surface that we want to display. So if it is a very shiny surface, it is modeled with a large value of ns. Maybe it is ns value will be more than 100. Or if it is not a very shiny surface, then we will be having the values which are smaller. That means it may be from 1 onwards. For a perfect reflector, ns will be infinite. For a rough surface, you can see that like a chalk piece or a wood or something, you can see that the ns value will be a value somewhere near 1. So that is how the Pong model is going to work. Other than the ideal reflectors, all other specular reflections will be over a finite range. This finite range will be around the viewing position vector R. Shiny surfaces, they will be having a very narrow specular reflection range. You can see here the left side one, it is a shiny surface, so the range is very narrow. This will be for a large value of ns. So if it is a very shiny surface and all, the value will be very close to 100 or more. So if it is a dull surface means, then you will be having the ns value will be very less, and you will be having a wide range. So the dull surfaces will be having a wider reflection range. This is illustrated in this particular picture. The intensity of the specular reflection depends on the material properties of the surface and also the angle of incidence of the light. It will also depend upon the polarization and also color of the incident light. So we make use of a specular reflection coefficient W theta for each of this surface to see what is the intensity variation. So in this picture, you can see the general variation of this W theta, that is the specular reflection coefficient, over a range of theta values from 0 to 90 degrees for some of the materials. So the materials what we are considering is a glass, gold and then the silver. So in general you can see that the W of theta, it is tending to increase as the angle of the incidence increases. When the angle of incidence is increasing, the value of the W theta, that the specular reflection coefficient, will also increase. At theta is equal to 90 degree, we can see that the incident light is reflected. That is because the W theta has become equal to 1. The variation of the specular intensity with the angle of the incidence, it is described by Frenzel's laws of reflection. So the Phong model, it depends on various parameters, and this is one parameter, and this is called as the W theta. The W theta, which is the specular reflection coefficient, it also influences the components. That means what formula I am going to take in my Phong model, that will be influenced by this W theta as well. For many opaque materials, specular reflection is constant for all incidence angles. So in that case, we are going to replace W theta with a constant specular reflection coefficient Ks. So this Ks will be equal to some value which is in the range 0 to 1 for each surface. Because V and R are unit vectors, whenever I tell unit vector, the unit vector is nothing but it will be having the magnitude as 1. So this V and R, they are in the viewing and the specular reflection directions. We can calculate the value of the cos phi by making use of the dot product V into R. In addition to this, no specular effects are generated for the display of a surface if the V and L are on the same side of the normal vector. So we can assume that the specular reflection coefficient is a constant for any material, and so we can determine the intensity of the specular reflection for a point source at the surface position by using this formula 14, where we have the values Ks, Il and the vectors V and R, and also the value N of S. The direction for the R, the reflection vector, it can be computed from the directions for the vectors L and N. A simplified Phong model can be got halfway vector H, which is between L and V. L is the vector towards the light source and V is the vector towards the viewer. So by making use of these two, we can calculate the range of the specular reflection. We can replace this V and R in the Phong model with the dot product N into H. And this will simply replace the empirical cos phi calculations what we had done in the previous one, and we are going to get a new formula, that is in the formula 16. So this, for non-planar surfaces, N into H, it is going to require less computation than V into R, because the calculation of R at each surface point, it is going to involve the variable vector N. Also, if both the viewer and the light source are sufficiently far, so the vectors V and L, they will be constant, and thus H is also constant for all the surface point. If the angle between H and N is greater than 90 degree, N into H becomes negative, and we can set the specular reflection contribution to 0.0. So this is the simplified Phong model. The vector H, it is the orientation direction for the surface. It is going to produce the maximum specular reflection in the viewing direction for a given position of the point light source. That is why H is sometimes referred to as the surface orientation direction for the maximum highlight. So if the vector V is coplanar with the vectors L and R, the angle alpha has the value phi by 2. So when V, L and N are not coplanar, so then the phi will be equal to, alpha will be equal to phi by 2, and it depends upon the spatial relationship of the three vectors, that is V, L and N, the viewer, the light and the normal vector. So this is called as the simplified Phong model. So this picture over here, it is going to represent all the vectors L, N, H, R and V. The H is the halfway vector which is obtained by making use of L plus V divided by absolute value of L plus V. Here we are going to replace V into R by N into H. It is replaceable. So H is called as the halfway vector. All these things are the theory behind the APIs, which are for the illumination and the lighting models. So in the next class, we are going to see all the APIs which are related to this topic, that is lighting and illumination models. Thank you.